Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Kakaki, the African Voice, this Thursday, of course, the first day of February 2024. Time now for us to take a look at what the newspapers have for us, looking at the headlines, and we already have joining us in the house two gentlemen, usual ones, who will do a review of these headlines with us. Simon Reef Musa is here.
Good morning,
Simon. And
Chicks. Good morning. Good morning. Honorable Chicks.
Honorable Chooks.
Akuna Matata. Good morning, Chooks.
This is the first day of the month.
Yes, it is.
February.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what the papers have for us. We will start with Leadership newspaper this morning. And the headline there is talking about insecurity. No negotiation with bandits, Northwest governors vow. That's on page 4. And just above that, you see two courts give conflicting orders over arrest of Fubara's chief of staff.
I see that Nigeria air deal under investigation with the EFCC KMO. But the Nigerian Express looks at kidnappers hit Abuja again, snatched two sisters, demand 30 million naira ransom. 4 Kano kidnappers arrested after kidnapping, collecting ransom in Edo. And of course, you also see that story on EFCC traces 7 billion naira, but the story is on page 9.
Yeah, and that same story is what the Daily Sun leads with. Terrorism. EFCC links 7 billion naira to religious body. Accuses faith organization of protecting money launderers. That's the top headline on the Sun newspapers. But if you go just beside masthead, you see CBN moves to reduce banks' risk exposure. Releases new compliance template to sanction defaulters.
Nigerian pilot looks at exposed. EFCC boss says commission uncovered religious sect laundering money for terrorists, that another religious body was found protecting money launderers when funds were traced to his account, expresses regrets that religious bodies would be laundering money for terrorists, and final rider says vows to probe anybody suspected of financial crime, including religious leaders, on page 8.
The Daily Times, and it leads with EFCC indicts religious bodies for terrorism, money laundering. That story is trending. Virtually all the papers have it. And the writer here on the Daily Times says court blocks agency's attempts to recover 13 billion naira. That's on page 5. And lower, when you go lower below the picture story, you see court orders arrest of Rivers Chief of Staff over burnt assembly complex. The crisis in Rivers State still doesn't seem to have come to an end yet.
Just after being inaugurated. But this Naira free fall. Senate summoned CBN governor on state of economy as currency plunges further to 1,520 naira per dollar. Apex Bank rolls out fresh guidelines to commercial banks, and that's the rider to that story. But reps direct Federal Fire Service to refund 1.48 billion naira COVID-19 funds.
To First News now, EFCC uncovers religious sects laundering money for terrorists behind 7 billion naira fraud as anti-graft agency plans fraud risk assessment for presidency, National Assembly, others. And of course, below the picture story there, you see the headline, Senate summons CBN governor on state of economy, Naira free fall.
Nigerian News Direct, Naira depreciation is how it leads this morning. CBN sets new foreign currency exposure limit for commercial banks, accuses banks of hoarding FX to increase profits, and that's on page 10. Above the masthead, you also see that story, 7 billion naira fraud, religious organization, pipeline for funding terrorists, EFCC alleges.
The People's Daily leads with the story, court orders arrest of Fubara's COS, 5 others over terrorism, DPO's murder. The story is on page 5. While if you just look below the masthead, push bandits of Zamfara. Governor Lawal directs 2,646 inaugurated guards. General Ali Gusso, okay, that's gone off now. There's a rider to that story, really. But the story is on page 6 of that paper.
New National Star looks at Jonathan government used 4.6 billion naira on, of course, NSA fund to organize prayers against insecurity, says EFCC. 78 companies allegedly received contracts without bidding, and that's on page 2. Alleged terrorism, killing of DPO, court and orders arrest of Fubara's chief of staff, 5 others on page 2.
Now to the Daily Trusts. Amid insecurity, NEF Ohaneze, CSOs angry over Tinubu's private trip to Paris. He's on top of the situation that's coming from the presidency. The story is on page 4. And when you look at the bottom of the page, Naira drops to 1,400 Naira to the dollar at the official market. Senate summons CBN governor over free fall. BDCs close shop. And that's a top story there this morning on the Daily Trust.
The blueprint is still looking at the uncovering. EFCC uncovers religious sect laundering 7 billion naira for terrorists. Associating internet crimes with Nigeria lacks statistical evidence. Tinubu police reject 8.5 million naira bribe in Taraba. Arrest suspect. Rivers crisis court orders arrest of Fubarasi chief of staff here. 5 others on that story.
To The Guardian now, CBN frantically tightens noose on banks' FX operations, speculators, and you see the graphic representations there. Of course, it tells you that something serious is going on.
And that's a bull and that's a bear.
The bull and the bear, yes. Of course, you see, the bull, of course, is the dollar, and the bear is the naira. 1 in every 10 extremely poor people live in Nigeria. That's at the bottom of the page. And that's the World Bank saying that. It's on the business part of the newspaper when you open and go onto the inside pages.
All right, so New Telegraph is looking at Senate summon CBN governor over worsening economy free fall of Nigeria. Sees inflation of great concern. Apex Bank orders lenders to limit exposure to foreign currency. Nigeria is playing with 3,500 to $1 by year end, says Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. You also look at that story. EFCC probing Nigeria air deal, Keyamo.
The Nigerian Tribune says Senate summons CBN governor on state of economy. And CBN limits banks' FX holding to curb speculation. Pressure on Naira persists. Analysts say CBN's new directive has potential for currency appreciation. Naira tumbles to 1,455.59 to the dollar at the official markets.
This Day Today looks at CBN unfolds measures to boost forex supply, mitigate foreign currency speculation. You also want to look at that. Rider sets limits for banks' net open position, removes exchange rate allowable limit for IMTOs, and then says analysts predict $6 billion inflows to market, says policies will have salutary impact on economy. And then, of course, you see Naira falls to 1,530 Naira per dollar on the parallel market. You also want to look at that one just above there. We are going ahead with fund relocation. Says 500 million Naira on tickets for operations not sustainable. Post no concession agreement can stop progress in aviation sector, and that's what we see, and of course other stories there. But let me come to the reviewers this morning. Good morning, gentlemen. So let's begin. Maybe I begin with you, Chooks. No negotiation with bandits, not governor's vow. How do you look at this?
Yes, very interesting. It's but you see, we can't discuss that story in isolation of what happened yesterday at the Yaradua Center, where the EFCC chairman, apparently celebrating his 100 days in office, he called religious and political stakeholders to Abuja. Because you see, he shocked. I was there, and Ola Olokoyede, the EFCC chairman, shocked the audience when he disclosed that a particular religious organization, laundered 7 billion naira of the 13 billion they're investigating, for terrorists. So you see, if you have a religious sect that it's, of course, he didn't mention if it was a Christian or Islamic. He didn't mention the name of the sect.
Traditional religion.
Yes,
religious sect.
yes. And he was trying to explain the frustration of the commission. Because you see, and like the emphasis, because you're talking about how these bandits get all this funding. If traditional and religious institutions that ought to be the moral compass of society are the ones now helping terrorists to launder money, so it becomes a very big problem, bigger than we imagine. Because on the one hand, you're talking about insecurity every day. We're wondering how these guys get their funding. I mean, because to buy arms and ammunition, definitely you need money to do that. So if religious organizations are the ones now helping these terrorists launder money, it helps us to understand why it's become a very, very big problem for us too. Terrorism has become a very, very big problem in Nigeria. And I'm happy about what people like Sultan of Sokoto said, His Eminence Abubakar. He actually posed a question to government that if we're talking about fighting corruption, we should start with the caliber of persons we are appointing to government. Because like what the Sultan said, if you know somebody that's been a thief, from primary school days up till when, it's 40 or 50 years, then you appoint him and expect that in 4 years he will just turn and become a sinner. It's not possible. And, yesterday was very interesting. Vice President was there, and the Ooni of Ife raised the question of how the presidency, because the EFCC chairman said something also very startling, that he was going to start with the presidency. He was going to start with the villa. Then in that order, after the villa, he would go to the legislature, National Assembly, and then the judiciary.
So he's already started with the governance.
Yes, he
former
did.
governance.
Exactly. And the Ooni of Ife raised concerns about how independent, how much of a free hand the president was going to give the EFCC, to allow it, to give you room to investigate itself. And I was happy that the vice president was there, and the vice president, answered that question that, as far as they're concerned, Olukayode, and that the president has given him the mandate, that no matter whose ox is God. And this is very, very encouraging, because you see, I talk about a tree making a forest. We've seen institutions where people have headed and they've turned around, not just institutions, even countries. We've seen, like in Ghana, where people like Jerry Rawlings, single-handedly turned around the countries like Indonesia. So it's a people. It's like a truck. It's like a 40-foot trailer, truck. You have what you call the tractor, the front. So it's where it steers to, or the train. It's where the engine steers the train.
And the rest of the body goes.
Exactly, because it's leadership by example. And sometimes and that's why we come very hard on Buhari. Buhari every day was talking about anti-corruption, and that anti-corruption was going to be his mantra. But from what we're seeing now, we see that it's very obvious that Buhari encouraged corruption. And interestingly, Tinubu, whom we were always accusing that he never spoke about fighting corruption, he's one who's actually fighting corruption. Because anyhow you say it, anyhow it's viewed, the EFCC, as we know, has transformed.
So he's putting, of course, the word to action, and action speaks louder than words.
And without making noise about it.
Yeah.
And if you look at the caliber of persons that came yesterday, Matiko, persons from the customs, VCs, because what the EFCC basically was saying yesterday was that it is our graduates, people who are graduates 10 years ago are now governors, they are ministers there. So there's a way to start fighting corruption, because I think the one vice chancellor said something very, very revealing yesterday, that even so many students now, that the lecturers are even afraid of the students because they're into financial crimes, the Yahoo boys, and the kind of money they make, they have bigger cars than even the lecturers. So even calling them to order becomes a problem. So I think it's good that the EFCC is targeting our youth, because it's from there that we get the raw materials for those who will become leaders. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, we must talk about the headlines that speak to insecurity.
Yeah.
It's spiraling out of control from the way it's... only yesterday in Kubwa, kidnappers snatched 2 sisters, actually 3 children. And they sent the boy to go back and tell the father that you have to come up with 30 million naira to get your daughters back. And if you marry that with what Chuks just discussed, EFCC indicting religious organizations of laundering money for terrorists, plus the fact that the Northwest governors have vowed that they will not negotiate with bandits. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I thank you very much. But I want to state here that when a nation deviates from the objective of pursuing efforts at national development and completely abandons the welfare of the people, you have what you have. Let me tell you, what is going on in this country, what works in this country is politics and criminality. And if you look at that very closely, you'll understand that criminals have even infiltrated the corridors of power. Why you have bandits outside killing people is because you have bandits inside that are supposed to control the people not doing their job. Now, honestly, on the issue of insecurity, we can talk from now till eternity. But the issue is nothing works in Nigeria because there is no clear way that encourages patriotism and honesty. And it is based on that the youth find it very, very easy to incline themselves to the perpetrators of crimes. So when you talk of insecurity, I think it's a deeper issue. It's deeper because the people that are supposed to control the economy of the country, the affairs of the country, are not interested, or they seem helpless. Because if you look at, there is a news story there that a woman sold 2 of her children at 1.8 million. Because she has 11 children, she felt that she couldn't take care of the others. Why not sell 2 to raise the other 8?
The other 8.
It's very pathetic. When you don't take the human being at the center of development, then you have chaos on your hand. So the issue of insecurity continues. I'm very happy that the governors of the North for the first time have come out in unison to declare their stand that they will not negotiate with terrorists. But the question I ask, what are the efforts on ground? What are things they are putting on ground to ensure that you deal with them? These are some governors that don't even stay in their own states. Once the monthly thing comes as fact, they leave the country. They don't even care what happens in the states. And then if they come and say they vow, is it just vowing? There should be certain things on ground to ensure that you want to carry out your threats. So honestly, it is a tragedy of monumental proportion that even in the nation's capital, people are not safe. People are afraid. People go and kidnap people and ask, say, pay 30 million naira. Where will you get the 30 million?
And I mean, there's a ban on crowdfunding.
And there's a ban on crowdfunding. But like I said, if there is even something more than that, that is what will continue. But the truth of the matter is that the citizens are in a very helpless situation, and government seem helpless. I listened to the interview of Daniel Bwala
yesterday.
He said he went to France, he saw the president, and said, yeah, he's planning. See, let us see the cow out. Don't tell us that the cow is in the room. Let us see the cow out. Let him come smoking. Let him come smoking. Because if you don't tackle insecurity, see, a nation that is insecure is not a nation. It's not a country. So it will take a very long time for government to really convince this. Without tackling insecurity, government can do nothing. Okay. And then with the monster of corruption wrecking the land, I find it very difficult how soon this problem of insecurity will be solved.
And then yes, the poverty statistics by World Bank as well.
Yeah.
1 out of 10
it's extremely poor. It's even, you see, like, I find it very difficult reconciling, the spate of kidnappings and the victims. Like the one that happened in Ekiti. If you saw the school bus, village school, you understand? Village, one rundown school. So if the parents of those children had money, they wouldn't be. I saw this bus, I saw the kind of bus, you understand?
So
I want to ask, these kidnappers, are they from the moon? Because you see, you see somebody, you feel that you're deprived of the economic benefits of the country. They're going to target, they're not even targeting the rich. They're targeting the poor and telling them to bring 50, 100 million. And as if they had that 50 million naira, they will be in a commercial vehicle. I mean, this is a problem. And like, I think go back to what the Sultan said about, the way we chose, people. Because if we don't vet those who find themselves in corridors of power, we have this problem. Next tomorrow, Plateau's, INEC has said that they're holding rerun and by-elections all over Nigeria. As we speak,
26.
it's as if some people in INEC are happy with the crisis in Plateau State. I must say this. Because you see, we spend Christmas, people in Plateau spend Christmas mourning the dead. We all remember that. And from December 24th till date, in fact, from the time Governor Caleb Mutfwang was announced to win the election till date, Plateau has not rested for 1 week. And I see that is not bad enough. Some people in INEC are going to boast and tell people that they tend to interpret the judgment of. I did elementary political science. When you say rerun, it's different from by-election. Rerun means, you see, when an election is annulled and say rerun, it's taken for granted that all those who participated in the election ought to take part there. And what's more, I read a copy of the judgment of the Court of Appeal concerning Jos and Plateau North Senatorial District and Bassa, Jos North and Bassa Federal Constitution. It's very clear that all those who participated in the original elections are to participate in the rerun. But there's a certain officer in INEC, and INEC is keeping quiet because we have to raise this alarm here, because it's better for us to avert disaster than come here tomorrow and say 50 people are dead or 100 people are dead. You can see some people in INEC, because you see, I spoke about institutions. Look at how EFCC is doing us proud. Then INEC, every time you mention INEC, it's euphemism for corruption, it's euphemism for breach of the constitution. Look at what's happening in APGA. Edoziem,
yes.
They said, Supreme Court is very clear. This is the chairman of APGA. Then INEC becomes law unto itself as we speak. Because somebody called, I'm a journalist, and people have been calling me because when they see us on TV, they feel that we know everything. Is PDP participating in the rerun elections on Saturday? And I said yes. And they said that other parties are jubilating in Plateau that PDP will not, because I was discussing with you backstage that certain INEC officials are even saying that it was because of PDP that the election was annulled in the first place. So why would they? You understand?
Why would they participate?
Exactly. That people are supposed to be lawyers, who are supposed to be litigation officers in INEC. Because we say these things here because if next tomorrow people go to the polls and don't see PDP on the ballot,
so INEC has partisan interest.
Yes, INEC
that's what
partisan.
it means. Yeah.
INEC is very, 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 very partisan. And look at because we juxtapose two bodies, agencies, of government, INEC and EFCC. Look at how EFCC, you cannot fault EFCC's fight against corruption. They're not saying this person is the president's friend or this person is APC. We've seen how across board. And the chairman said yesterday that they're starting with the presidency. And that's the best way, that they want to know how our money is spent even in the villa. Who will do that? But because it takes some measure of confidence, from the president that, okay, you can do, I give you free hand, do as you like. Even if my son, look at how the president came and said, Sheyi, because I'm sure if it was Buhari's son was attending, what do you call it?
Federal Executive Council meetings.
He's not aware.
Yes.
But Tinubu came and said, Sheyi, that even if Sheyi is involved. So
no, he actually saw Sheyi in the
said,
council chambers, and he mentioned him specifically that Sheyi, I don't want to see you
so
here
that is
anymore.
how to lead. Because we lead by example. Sure. I'm happy that when we come here and talk, they listen. Yesterday, a new CP of police was appointed for FCT, Ben Igwe. I've known Ben, he was ADC in Imo 20-something years ago. He's held several command positions. He's been in Abuja. He headed SARS. So the ball is now in the court of CP Bernard Igwe. How he has to bring his experience to bear on the FCT, because suddenly FCT became, I may be wrong, but I think this crisis in FCT is politically motivated. I might be wrong, because suddenly the FCT becomes the epicenter of kidnapping, every day.
Under the new minister.
Exactly. The witch cries at night and the baby dies in the morning. You understand? You can't tell me that there's no, because suddenly, Abuja used to be very, very safe. Suddenly, every day kidnapping, Kubwa, Buhari, every day, Duse Alaji, everywhere.
But talking about Abuja being safe,
yeah.
I think even before kidnapping came in the last 1 or 2 years, that sense of safety has been a bit, has been a bit lacking.
on the edge.
I remember the
Because
prison
when I
break.
came to Abuja,
Yes.
when I started living in Abuja, like 2008, you could leave your car on the street with the doors open and walk away. 1 week after you come back, your car will still be there.
You know, I think the major problem, I think we try to identify that. You see, this is one chance. Because there was a day I was driving through the Minister's Hill, and right before me, they threw out a lady, you know, we gave the vehicle a hot chase. But you see, at the time too, because you see the policemen, most of them they're not motivated. We ran through several checkpoints, and you know, of course, they were caught napping. That's why you see, there's no way in the world where you don't have criminals. I think the Vice President said that much yesterday. There's no way in the world where you don't have criminals. But it is the will to apprehend these criminals. Look at New York, for instance. How many homicides do you have, you know, per minute in New York? It's one of the unsafest places on earth. But because when people commit crime, you know, they get apprehended. But here, people kill people every day. You know,
Okay,
people every day, and nobody
let's
catch them.
talk about something positive for a change before we close this segment. Simon, he's been talking about the FCT, and I want us to talk about the light rail system in Abuja. The FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, says it is sacrosanct. May 29, the Abuja light rail will take off. What is that good news?
Well, it's a good news, but for me, I will exercise caution because
you won't be too excited.
Yes, not too excited about it because we've had about all the story of light rail, nothing happens. I know there are enormous problems confronting the FCT because in the last 8 years we had a KIV minister that was doing nothing. Anything you send to him, say KIV. Anything you say KIV, and at the end of the day, you had problems. So you really need to sit down and look at those things you think you can achieve. I'm not excited. I don't expect that light rail will commence operation in May 29. But I think I need to say something very closely here. You see, I am impressed by Wike, but you should take it easy, especially on revenue generation. When you try to recertify the CFOs of people that have houses and you are insisting they should bring 5 million naira, somebody that just retired from the civil service, where do you expect such a person to get that 5 million naira? Oh, they say they have taken it down to 3 million. Where will you get the 3 million naira? So there are a lot of challenges. I mean, government is not about profitability, no. Government is about the welfare of the people. And when you don't take into consideration the welfare of the masses, of citizens, I think that's where you missed it. So I've had so much news about, oh, let's get revenue, let's increase. Oh, let's widen the tax net. The issue in this country is that big people don't even pay taxes. It's the poor people that pay. So there is need for Wike to sit down and have a rethink. Government have money. What is confronting government now is corruption. Monstrous corruption. When you tackle that monstrous corruption, everything will go. Yes, every country has one form of corruption or the other. But if you can take resolving the issue of corruption by just 40-50%, things will be right. So everything is about corruption. So he should focus on that and make the FCT a place for everybody to enjoy living.
I think very quickly, I think the FCT light rail is going to transform a lot of things because we're talking about insecurity. You see, for the past 8 years, not a single. I mean, when I came to Abuja early in 2000, you know, when El-Rufai became minister, you may not like El-Rufai, but we had this transport, this uniform 307 cabs,
the El-Rufai cabs
that you could identify. But here, because over the past 8 years or 8 or 9 years, no cab system in Abuja. It's very difficult to. All these criminals, they hide under the guise of what do you call them? Taxes. So you can't identify, you can't trace them. So light rail is going to really help transform Abuja, the FCT.
We will have to leave this conversation about light rail for another time.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about
when
it comes to the light rail because as far as I'm concerned, it needs to extend further than the corridors it is covering right now. But we have to leave it at that for this morning. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Chuks Akuna and Simon Reef Musa have joined us to review the newspaper headlines this Thursday morning. And of course, we will be moving on to